Hello and welcome back to Eagle-Eyed Football. Got an amazing guest with me today. And yes, this is Eagle-Eyed Football, not Eagle-Eyed Premiership. So we have got here a fan of Doncaster Rovers here, Aaron, also from the channel Forever Football, DRFC. So Aaron, thank you for taking your time to come out and speak to us today.
Yeah, no worries, man. Thank you very much, and it's great to have the opportunity to share, what my club's been through these last few decades, man.
Absolutely. We're going to go straight into it because, funny enough, as we were chatting off air, that the correlation between both our clubs has been unreal. For those who haven't, and for those who know how to access YouTube, type in "they think it's all Rover," and it gives a 45-minute overview as to a critical time in Doncaster Rovers' whole career, I would say. It was absolutely enthralling me. For me, even as a Palace fan, to go and watch that. Take us through a few bits, and then I'll ask some questions about it as we go along.
Yeah. So the whole, the documentary was all centered around that 1997-1998 season. It was, at the time, I wasn't born back then, but when you're Doncaster, you go back and you feel like you've been there once you know about it. We had an owner at the time called Ken Richardson, who, in my opinion, defies a man who shouldn't be running a football club. You saw the same pattern as to what he was doing with us. So before us, he was owning a club called Bridlington Town, who was in the non-leagues. And basically, it was the same thing that what happened to us. He put in a lot of financial interest. He wanted a new stadium, was denied it by the council. He drew the financial interest back. He tried to put the club on its knees until the club folded, which is what happened to Bridlington. I think they folded and then came back again as a different club. He tried to do the same thing to us. He sort of brought in money for new players, and then he wanted a new stadium. At the time, it was the most expensive site outside of the Premier League, and outside of London as well. It's the most expensive site outside of London. So he wanted a new stadium on there. Council said no because you've got a lease on the ground you're currently on. And then what he did was he drew back the financial interest. He organised an arson attack on one of our stands. Our stand got burned. One of our main stands got burned via an arson attack set up by the owner, caused by his assistant in crime. He tried to put this club on its knees, and I think unfortunately for Bridlington, I think we were a different scenario because we weren't going to. I think we had enough manpower because we weren't going to take it. And the whole documentary was centered around that season where we were bottom of the league, bottom of the Football League, going out into the Conference Premiership. We were going through a really torrid time. And by the end of the documentary, we were in a situation where we barely had a squad. We had like 5 or 6 players. That's about it. Yeah. Everyone else walked or had, given up. There was no manager. There was no assistant manager. There was no coaches. There was a stadium that was falling apart. There was functions of the stadium that wasn't working. You had doors broken. You had holes in walls and doors. You had one thing that actually looked nice in the stadium at the time, and that was a sign in the entrance saying "Welcome to Doncaster Rovers." That entrance poster was the only good thing about the club at that time. Everything else was just destroyed, and it was all focused around the Save the Rovers group and what they were doing at the time and how games functioned. And there was this really weird thing during a match away at Swansea where he put players in the wrong numbers to try and confuse the opposition, and he ended up
confusing himself at some point.
Yeah, and then he ended up putting people in the wrong numbers, and then he ended up being the one confused. And the assistant coach at the time, the assistant manager at the time, was a guy called Danny Bergara, who was a legendary player for Uruguay. He was a legendary striker. He was just doing his job. Danny Bergara's got no fault in this. It's Mark Weaver and Ken Richardson that are the main perpetrators along with the board. Danny Bergara actually came out in that documentary and said, "This is the worst club I have been at." And he was a legendary footballer, the late Danny Bergara. So he knew what it took. And he was as well, by his own admission, the first foreign manager in the Football League at the time. When he first came into the Football League. So he was a legendary guy in terms of what he brought to the Football League and what foreign managers brought to the Football League, because I think if it wasn't for the likes of Danny Bergara, we wouldn't have seen the likes of the Jose Mourinho's and your Bruno Lages, etc. So he admits it was the worst club he's been at. So Danny Bergara was trying to do his job. Obviously, it wasn't the best job in the world, but he tried to make the damage a little less bad on the pitch. And the players have been through so much at the time as well. So that documentary was just all about circling around the bad times of Doncaster Rovers. And then obviously, we had so much success off of it afterwards. And it was the sort of rebirth, as you would like, as the aftermath of that documentary.
Absolutely. And just to give our viewers out there a bit more context as to that 97-98 season, that was just before the World Cup. And it just talks about the fact that, for example, the whole club was worth 1 week's wage of Dennis Bergkamp.
Yeah.
Which just shows the financial constraints there were. And unfortunately for a lot of the players at the time, if they might not have watched the World Cup, they might have had to go and find work, and owners. I mean, Mark Weaver.
Absolute tool case. Absolute tool case.
It's so unreal. Like, obviously not to spoil it, because I actually generally want viewers to go and see the documentary themselves. But his actions towards the end, the last game of the season against Peterborough, I believe it was just terrible. Like, you promised the fans that you won't show, but pride and ego kicked in and you showed up.
Yeah, it was the last day of the season against Colchester. Colchester were going to go up. Colchester was, if they won, they were going to go up to Division 1, which was League One at the time. The second division, sorry, was League One at the time. And, it was a 1-0 win. We stuck in there. They got the last goal near the end of the match. And the actions from Mark Weaver was disgusting. He said he wasn't going to be there. And then he turned up with a larger group of minders. And then, he says in the documentary, it was a difficult decision whether I came or not. No, it wasn't. You wanted to come because you wanted to cause trouble. You wanted the fans to get angry. And then people blame the fans and the police blame the fans. So, Mark Weaver knew exactly what he was doing. He might be a moronic tool case, but he was a smart, calculated villain. I think both of them, I think Richardson, Weaver, and the Ball were calculated, smart villains. They weren't dumb, they were smart. They knew exactly what they were doing with what they were trying to do to destroy a football club and get a profit out of it. So, and you could see that towards the second half when he was advised to leave the ground because of risk of his own safety. You could see how much the Rovers fans hated that man. Yeah. As soon as he came out of that box and went down the tunnel, you could hear scum, 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 because he defied the word scum.
But you can even tell with that instance as well, how strategic it was. It was to make him seem as if he's a victim in this scenario.
He was trying to twist it. He was absolutely trying to twist it. And we're Rovers fans. We don't take no BS from anyone. If you try and step into our ends and mess with us, we beat you with corner flags. That's what we do. That's what we do. If you try and twist it, we'll twist it back, and we'll make sure the world knows about it.
A very iconic moment where one specific fan, and obviously the name of the fan wasn't really, but he came out and sat right on the centre circle and said,
"That was a moment.
This game is not kicking off until we say it kicks off." And
that was a moment.
That one individual is going, don't know if he's still alive at this time, but he's going to live in Doncaster Rovers history.
That was it.
His statement.
That was the moment. That was the one moment, along with the protest that came on straight afterwards during that, because the game was abandoned during the first half and then brought back on to finish the match after all the fans had, been taken off the pitch. Or when they went off the pitch themselves. That moment when he sat in the centre circle, that was a moment because we knew deep down, the world finally knew, okay, so that they really are in some deep, deep trouble. Yeah. And this is the problem with football nowadays. People don't care about lower league clubs until it's too late. Look at Bury, look at Macclesfield, look at all these. And you see the stuff with, we're going to probably talk about this later, but the stuff with the Super League. People are going to say, well, the Football League doesn't get affected by it. Trust me, we'll talk about it later. It does. So this was, and the money, and the Premier League, I think some Football League fans are saying, well, the Premier League's getting their own karma because they broke away from us 20 years ago, so they're getting their own karma back. But it is still affecting us, but that was a moment. That was one of the first moments 20 years ago that sort of made you look and say, well, finance has really taken over football. It's not a sport anymore. So,
yeah. Just before we move on to the ESL, I just want to ask about your because obviously, as you said, you weren't alive at the time. So, obviously, growing up in Doncaster and such, how did you come across this documentary? How did it shape how you felt as a fan?
well, I've been a Rovers fan since I was like 4 or 5 years old. So I remember being at that stadium that had its stand burnt down and stuff like that. I remember being in the terraces of Bellevue. It looked like a classic Greyhound stadium, but we didn't care what it looked like. It was a stadium. It felt like home, and the Keepmoat Stadium now feels like home. You can see behind me.
Yeah.
In the Bellevue, it felt like home. It felt like a second home. Doncaster Rovers, when you're a fan of that club, it feels like a second family because it's a family club, it's a community club, and it's what we need more of in English football and football worldwide. We need more community clubs. We need more clubs where the fans get involved with the club and they get involved a lot more than what Premier League do with their fans. So, I first came across the documentary a few years ago, when I was in the swing of it. I've been a fan for about a decade or so. And, I went back to look at some old matches and some old, moments and stuff like that. And I came across this documentary. I came across this documentary and I came across another one called Ashes to Glory, where the chairman, John Ryan, who was chairman after that Turonic period, right through until about 6-7 years ago now. So about 1998 to 2014, he was the chairman of the club, and he actually brought us from the conference to the championship in the space of 5-6 years. So, he did this documentary called Ashes to Glory, where he sort of spoke about that period, about how he brought the club back. He brought the club for about £50,000, and he had the money to put it back to where it needs to be, which was where we went in 2008, which was the promotion to the championship for the first time in 50 years. He was a Donny fan and wanted to own the football club. He was part of this consortium where he wanted to get the club back to where it needs to be, which is the championship, and try and, a decade ago, our highest position was 10th place in the championship a decade ago. We were nearly in the playoff spots from the Premier League. I think it was a few games after the season, we were near the playoff spots of the Premier League. We were nearly there. Yeah. So we can get back to those heights again now. And, seeing both documentaries, seeing where we were when we were about to go out of business to where we are now and where it leads to in the present day, it's like the transformation of our football club. It saddens me on the sad side of things, but on the other side of things, it brings me so much joy that we could have been out of business. And that's why I respect the current ownership so much, because John Ryan had spent all this money. He couldn't offer any more, so we did the sensible thing and stepped down. Our current ownership have kept us afloat. If it weren't for them, we probably would have gone out of business again. Right. And they've kept us stable, and they're starting to build now. And starting this transfer window right now for promotion to the championship next season under our new manager. So, the foundations were there, and it's been built up again. So, watching both documentaries gave me sort of perspective of where we could have gone to where we are now. It was remarkable and awe-inspiring.
Absolutely, and it just shows the journey. But we're going to talk about the ESL in a minute. But I thought this is from what you just said, it's just a fitting time to even talk about Palace. On Amazon Prime, they've got a documentary called When Eagles Dare. And it also talks about we were 1 hour away from administration ourselves, like completely being bust and gone. And fans went outside Lloyd's Bank, protested, and finally they gave up ownership to Steve Parish, who's still in charge of us now, and he had a little consortium himself. And that journey of almost being gone to then finally getting promotion after 8 years, that journey in itself is what us fans love. And you mentioned about, say, the Prem teams not so much caring about the lower league, and I put lower leagues in quotation marks because I feel like there are some huge clubs down there.
Yeah.
Massive, massive clubs. And it brings us to the ESL where you mentioned Bury. I was heartbroken to hear that Bury had gone. What? Because if we look at the Premier League clubs, if they will just offer out 500,000 to even £1 million, it keeps a club like that afloat, But then we've also got greedy owners. What's your thoughts on the ESL?
You know what, mate? I actually get so emotional talking about the Super League because, what we do in the community is community family clubs and get the fans involved, and it's not like Premier League where you got the board at the top, you got the fans at the bottom, you got the players and staff in between. Us, we're all on one line. The board, the fans, the players, the staff, we're all on one line. We're all on one level playing field, and we all care about each other. And to see what they were trying to do, they were saying, "Oh, there's going to be financial support for the rest of the pyramid." Bull crap, absolute bull crap. This was one thing and one thing only, and this was greed. This was calamity. This was disgusting.
Yeah.
Some of the media sources were getting on their high horse, saying we care about the fans when when it comes to clubs going out of business. You have like a transfer deadline day countdown clock on Sky Sports when Bury went out of business. Jim White and all that stuff. I was mad when I saw that when Bury was about to go out of business, and Bolton were going to go out of business as well. If it wasn't
very close as well,
they were, and you know what, Bolton were given a 7-day extension. And my theory behind that is because they were looking at Bolton and Bury and thought, well, Bolton's got history with the Premier League, so I think if we keep the former Premier League club, we might have a better relationship with the top division than we would if we kept Bury instead of Bolton's. They couldn't say both because let's not beat around the bush here. Bury had 3 offers right then and there. They had the funds to back it up. They were all there, ready to sign. There was no, it'll be signed and then we'll officially complete it the next day. It was we've got everything. If we sign it, it's done. You don't need to do any more. We can just announce it there and then. And the EFL said, no. We're going to keep Bolton because they're a Premier League club from the past. Absolutely. We're going to let you go because you haven't got any top flight history, so we're going to let you go.
Yeah.
Fair play to what they're doing in the non-leagues now with AFC Bury because they're doing a wonder at the minute.
Yeah, they are.
But it saddens me and it shakes me to the core that this is what football's come to now. The fact that billionaires can step in, make a profit out of a football club, and walk out, leaving the football club ruined and them a penny richer. It's a disgrace. It's shocking. When this was first announced, I felt like crying because football means I'm a Donny fan, but I'm a football fan first. And I'll always stick up for any club that's been mismanaged. I did a video on Macclesfield. I did a video on Charlton. I did stuff on Man United. I've spoken on past streams from other people about Arsenal and Tottenham and Liverpool as well. And I just I felt broken, and I see the stuff going on recently about it. I saw the Madrid Zone on Twitter released, I think, a week or so ago, the official bonding documents with the official signatures from all of the clubs in this Super League, and you see stuff like there was a lawyer from an EU court, a top lawyer that said, "I think the EU court's going to pass the Super League," and that was only a few days ago.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I was like, no, please, don't let all this protest be for nothing.
I really fear it's going to happen regardless.
I really do. And I think the Super League are going to force the 6 clubs to get back on board.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to recruit some more clubs as well because it's going to happen. And I think I was saying this before to someone. I would have liked it more if there was multiple divisions for lower league clubs. So leave the big clubs to the Champions League, Europa League, Europa Conference League.
Yeah.
Work with UEFA and pump 3 billion quid into the lower leagues to give them their own European nights. Yeah. Give them like for example us. Imagine if the Super League came out and said, right, we're going to help the lower league football pyramid in Europe. We're going to give League One and League Two clubs or second division clubs in Europe a chance to play each other in our own UEFA European Super League. So imagine if we had the chance. So imagine if we were put in a division with, let's say, Östersunds from Sweden, I guess FC Sion from Switzerland, Ajaccio from France, second division, that kind of thing. And they said, right, we're going to give each club £1 billion just for being a part of it. And we're going to give you an extra 100-odd million to put towards transfer funds and stability. I would have liked that more, and especially if there was a promotion and relegation to the highest Super League tier, where
Yeah.
you had clubs from second division and first division clubs inside of Europe, like your Serbian Premiership clubs and your Croatian Premiership clubs with
Yeah.
the Championship clubs. I would have liked it more if we, the Championship League 1, League 2, had our own European nights. If they did that and had a promotion relegation to get to the top Super League tier, then I'd have liked that more.
Yeah.
If more money was heading down to the lower league tier, I would have liked that more because it gives more financial stability. But what they did was they kept it close shop. The big name clubs. Let's not get it twisted here. Arsenal are not big at the moment in terms of their success, but this is the clubs
By name
by
and stature, yeah.
yeah. They're going to keep the clubs bigger by name up there and leave the rest of us to suffer on rations. That's basically what's happened here. So, in my personal opinion, that's why I was so pissed about this, because it's not the way to go about football. What they're doing is they're turning it into the NBA, the NHL, the NFL. They're turning it into an American franchise. And I said this as a joke. I think in 25 years, if this gets passed and goes through anyway, 25 years' time, we're going to have a nice evening where Fiorentina, you're going to have loads of youngsters. All the academies are closed. There's going to be like 15, 16-year-olds, the world's best 15, 16-year-olds sat on tables in a big arena with the whole crowd behind them and that. Florentino Perez is going to come out and saying, the first pick in the ESL youth draft goes to Manchester United, who have 5 minutes to make their selection. And this is going to go the same way. And there was talk that we're going to do quarters instead of halves. There was talk there's going to be halftime shows. So, sorry, is this the Super Bowl or the NBA Championship playoffs?
It's going to be mental.
It's more than mental. It's going to be. I can't even watch football anymore. I'm going to stick to my own club, but I can't watch football if it's going to end up like this, because what it's doing is. I think Gary Neville said it best. I'm not against modernising competition, but if it's at the expense of the clubs that are the heart of the community dying out, I don't want no part of it. I don't.
Absolutely. Sorry, that draft thing got me, because I do watch quite a few American sports, so that reference.
Yeah, I've watched loads of NBA drafts, and I see what they do, and I'm thinking, God, I think the Premier League could go that way at some point if we're not careful.
Yeah.
If we don't start holding back on money. And I think the ownership of these clubs, I could see it coming for 15 years with some of these owners. Like the Glazers, there was protests going on a decade ago with Enoch and Levy. You see the protest this year, and you're like, surely that's not the only Tottenham protests. Oh, no. Tottenham were going to move to the Olympic Stadium, and they protested against that, Tottenham fans, and they went against it. Do not underestimate the power of fans, because they protested before. But the main problem, I can't believe I'm saying this, because this is an industry that I love and I want to sort of step into one day. It's the mainstream media. The mainstream media have been bigging up these owners, Mike Ashley, saying the Kroenke. You see, Ray Parlour. They went on speaking about the Super League on TalkSport, and he twisted it to say AFTV are at fault. Are you taking the mickey out of me, Disney? Are you joking me? It's unbelievable that people would try and twist it to say that fan channels are in the wrong. And then you have actual fans so-called fans of these clubs that come out and say, oh, I don't know why you're complaining. You're playing against the best teams in the world every week. Think. Use your nut. Use your brain. Think about it. Playing against the same biggest clubs in the world every single week in Tampa, in Boston, in New York, in LA, in worldwide stadiums, neutral venues.
Yep, it would have won
Abu Dhabi, Japan, China, if they allow the borders to be open and that. But it's like I don't get why you would say that. Like, playing against the best teams every week, it's going to be great. No, it's going to be boring. It's going to be the same old, same old. Yeah. VAR is still going to be crap. The referees are still going to be worse. The halftime shows are going to be budget. The youth drafts every season in the Brooklands Arena in New York is going to be the same old with just the next crop of youngsters.
Yeah.
And the worst thing for me about this is not even the fact of the plan of the Super League. That's the worst thing for me. The worst thing for me is the idols for the next generation. What kind of
Absolutely.
example are they setting to the next
Yeah.
generation? You can win at all costs. Greed wins at all costs. That is what they're teaching our kids and our grandkids and our great grandkids. And I'm sorry, that is bang out of order.
And
And
even on a very basic scale, the fact that they wanted no relegations. So you're teaching the young generation again that failure is okay without any sort of progression.
Yeah.
And such.
What does this do?
The beauty of relegation is, can we pick ourselves back up again?
Yeah.
The foundations of life. And they want to just get rid of that.
What does this do to Aston Villa, who are building a big squad right now with Buendia, with Grealish, with all these new players? They've won a European Cup, one more than Arsenal's ever won, so why are they in there? Aston Villa, what does that do to them? Leicester City, the best run. I mean, look, our owners are fantastic, but Leicester City are the best run club in world football.
Absolutely.
I will make that statement, not just
I agree.
Leicester City are the best run club in world football right now, because they've got a chairman and a family that run that club like an amazing, well-oiled machine. Absolutely. They care about the fans. They give them free shirts. The chairman comes down. When have you seen, well, I think a couple of decades ago, when have you ever seen a chairman, the son of the late owner Vichai, come down to that Wembley pitch, lift up the trophy that they won and lift it with pride? When do you ever see a chairman do that? That proves what that club is about.
Let's even put that into more context. He didn't just come down. The players, they all wanted him down there.
Yeah. And to be honest, he wants to go down there as well. The players wanted to, the manager wanted to, he wanted to. That club is exactly what you would want as a football club. That's what you want to see from a football club. Definitely. West Ham United finishing just outside the Champions League this season. What does it do to them? Yes, their owners aren't the best, but David Moyes has proved everybody wrong. He was robbed of manager of the season this season. He was robbed of that award. He was robbed of that. He should have won that by a landslide, but no. The Premier League, all they care about their favourite godchild, so they'll give it to Pep Guardiola. Yeah, their favourite godchild. Yeah, in other words, their favourite puppet to bring them money. And this is nothing against Pep Guardiola, because he's a nice guy, he's a wonderful guy, he deserves success. But he should be just because you won the Premier League again, you didn't win the Champions League, you didn't win the FA Cup, you won I think you won the Carabao Cup. Yeah. But you won the Carabao Cup, you won the league, didn't win the Champions League, didn't win the FA Cup. You've just done the same old. You've just done the same old. David Moyes has got West Ham to Europe, despite the ownership, despite the pandemic, despite the Super League business.
Despite him having COVID.
Exactly. He took that group of players and took them to a Europa League confirmed place and nearly got them into the Champions League. Yeah. Surely that's more deserving than another guy who's just won another Premier League, but like the fourth time in 6 years. Yeah. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how they treat the big boys compared to other clubs, because you never know what could happen if you back other clubs. Like if the Newcastle takeover went through, you never know what could have happened. Newcastle could have spent loads of money. They could have been your new godchild of advertising. Yeah. Newcastle could have given you a few new Premier Leagues. Burnley's got their American takeover. If you give them a bit more support, look at what they could do under Sean Dyche with a bit more money. Sean Dyche's got that team amazingly run well. Yeah. Look at the clubs in the Championship that have come through. Brentford, I can't wait to see what they're going to do.
I'm so happy to hear that.
I cannot wait to see what they're going to do for the first time in 76 years in the Premier League. I cannot wait to see what they're going to do next season. Norwich, they're on a roll. I see other clubs further down the pyramid. There's clubs where, in my league, we're going places at the minute. Yeah. Accrington Stanley are going places. Ipswich on the reef.
Ipswich United. I cannot wait to see Sutton United.
Sutton United, they look amazing. And there's other clubs as well. Oxford United, they've got a project going on under Carl Robinson. Morecambe are in league. They've never been relegated, and they're in League One for the first time in over 100 years. They've never been in League One, and they're up there. And they've been in League Two for the last 16, 17 years. They've
time,
never been relegated, and they've been in League Two for 16, 17 years, and they're in League One for the first time in their history. That's a story, and that's what the Super League is trying to take away. And that's why it hurts me so much. That's why I feel emotional talking about the Super League every time, man, because it's destroying the love that we had for the sport and what we love about the sport, which was the unpredictable. Year by year, I keep seeing the unpredictable become predictable again. And it doesn't feel exciting anymore, which is why I love our league, because we've got no technology. We've got pure, clean football. We've got proper grassroots style football, back when technology never existed.
Yeah.
And it feels right. But when you look at the Premier League, I was speaking to our former chairman, John Ryan, the man that took us from rags to riches over a 6-year period, the man who basically saved this club and took it to heights we never experienced in our lives before. I spoke to him months ago, and he said, right now, back then, I had aspirations to get us into the Premier League. Right now, I don't really want us to get into the Premier League because it doesn't excite me anymore. Who doesn't want to be in the Premier League? Who doesn't want to be in the Premier League? But when you hear that, you sort of look at it on an outside perspective, you think, yeah, it doesn't excite me anymore. It doesn't feel like the Premier League anymore. It feels like Sponsorship League FC.
Yeah. Let's breathe. Let's breathe. Let's bring you back to your beloved club, Doncaster Rovers. Now, what would you say is your greatest moment as a fan? Because I've got an idea of what I think it could be, and there's something that I do want to touch up on, but you may actually bring it up.
Oh, mate, there was a few that sort of stick out in my mind. I mean, first moment we have to go all the way back to 2003 when we won the conference playoff final against Dagenham and Redbridge at Stoke City Stadium, and we got into the Football League for the first time in 5 years. And it was actually not just that moment, but it was actually the first game of that following season against Leyton Orient away. And John Ryan said it in the Ashes to Glory documentary. He said to his photographer, can you take a picture of me the moment that we kick off our first game back in the Football League? Because he said, I want to remember that moment. That felt amazing. I think we won 4-1 on that day as well, which was an amazing result. We had Dave Penny at the helm. He was a player to manager. He was the proper player to manager. Knew the club inside out. Knew what it took to win. And by the way, we had Glyn and Ian Snowden before Dave Penny as manager. So we had the Snowden brothers. Then we had Steve Wiggle in the conference. Then we brought in Dave Penny. And when we got promoted to the Football League, that was a moment as a young, getting out of toddler years as a kid for me. I've got very vague memories of it, but when I watch the game back, it all starts to flood back to me ever since. So that moment was so significant. 2006, the day we left Bellevue, that got me, man, because we've been at that stadium over 100 years. And, we rebuilt this club just after the First World War. And we rebuilt that club after everything that got on in the war. And we went into Bellevue, over 100 odd years ago. And when we and we knew deep down we need the new stadium. If we were going to rebuild, we need the new stadium anyway. So we knew it was going to happen, but that didn't make it any less sad that we were leaving Bellevue. And I've got very good memories of that. That last game of the season at Bellevue, winning 1-0 against Nottingham Forest with a wonderful 20-yard volley over the head of the goalkeeper from our centre back Theo Street. That was a moment. And then when we hit the full-time whistle, and I think we were singing, we are leaving, we are leaving, we are leaving Bellevue. And they sort of twisted the words. And then as a young kid, when we left the stadium, I said to my dad as a kid, Dad, can we just stop outside the stadium? And he said, why? And I was like, I want to see the lights go out for the last time. And we all stood out there and we saw the floodlights turned off. And as soon as that floodlight turned off, we all just clapped because it felt like that. And then we went to the Keepmoat Stadium for the first game of the Keepmoat against Huddersfield in 2007 on New Year's Day, I think. Yeah. We won 3-0. And I can remember that first goal on the day. It was one ball from the goalkeeper, one bounce, and Mark McCammon just chips it over the Huddersfield goalkeeper. It was beautiful. And when I hear the atmosphere go off on that McCammon goal, and I start to lose my voice, because every time I'm at a game, I always lose my voice because I'm passionate that much.
Yeah.
I always lose my voice after every single game. Mark McCammon scoring that goal was a moment for me because it felt like, oh my God, we're in this new stadium. We're going to be going places. So that was a moment to look out for. 2008, that James Hayter goal in the second half against Leeds United that took us for the first time in 50 years to the Championship, where we had beaten the mighty Leeds United, who, they were still going through an ownership crisis. They went through a 12-point deduction, stuff like that. And they still managed to get to the playoff final amongst all of that carnage under Gary McAllister as manager. And at the time, we had Sean O'Driscoll, man, he is our most legendary manager, arguably our most legendary manager. And we've had some good ones. We've had some good managers. We've had Billy Bremner, the Leeds United legend, as manager. Yeah. We've had Snowden brothers, Dave Penny, Darren Moore recently as well. So we've had some great managers, but Sean O'Driscoll will go down as the most amazing manager, the most legendary manager in our club history. Nearly 150 years of club history. He's our most legendary manager. And when the fight, and unfortunately I couldn't make it to Wembley for that day. I was watching the game from home. When the full-time whistle went, I just dropped to my knees and I looked at the skies and I said, "Yes, we've made it. We've done it. We've made it." And it's that emotion as a fan you feel supporting a club that's not experienced any top. We've never been in the top flight, let alone the Premier League. We've never gone higher than the second division. Never gone higher than that. Yeah. So we've never experienced the heights of the Premier League that Brentford are about to experience. So that moment it felt amazing because none of my generation had ever seen Championship football. I've been at the Doncaster Rovers for 50 years at that point. In 2008, we did it. And I just dropped to the knees and I was like, yes, we've done it. And then another big moment, there's two more big moments that stick out in my mind. One of them was 2012-2013 season, last game of the season, Brentford, Griffin Park. I think that was the one you thought you had written down.
Yeah. I
was there. I was there at the stadium. I was there at Griffin Park amongst that fan base.
Let's talk through this. So 94th minute. And I've written down this Jamie McCoon.
Yeah, the one that handled in the box.
Yeah, so it was a 94th minute penalty, I believe it was.
It was a handball, against Jamie McCoon.
Right. So what's your emotions there at that moment?
I was like...
This would have meant you would gone into the playoffs as opposed to automatic promotion.
Yeah, and I at that moment, I was like, I think we kind of have an idea now that we're going to be, having to fight it out. But we've done it in the past before. I think, 5 years ago, we've been promoted to the Championship through the playoff final. So we have a good record in the playoffs. We've got through to the Football League through the playoff final. We got into the Championship through the playoff final the first time round. So we had confidence in the playoffs anyway, even though we had the likes of, Magic Johnson and Yeovil Town to deal with. We did have a confidence in the playoffs. So it wouldn't have mattered either way. I think we were still in high spirits. We're just like, how have we let this go at the last minute? But that was the emotions at that point.
And just to bring a bit of context, sorry for those who are watching, Doncaster only needed a draw. They only needed a point. It was 0-0. It's the 94th minute, and now they're facing a penalty. Then there's an argument between the Brentford players. Where their regular penalty taker had the ball stripped away from him.
Yeah.
By it was an informed striker at the time.
Yeah.
And then he steps up and rattles the crossbar.
Yeah. On loan from Fulham, Marcelo Trotter hits the crossbar, and I'm like, "Oh my God, we're gonna get it!" And we see the pinball in the box afterwards. It gets cleared out, and I'm screaming at Billy Payne, "Get down that wing! Get down that wing! You can do it, son! You can do it! Yes!" And then the moment.
18 seconds later. And this is why we love football. 18 seconds later, you went from potentially going back into the playoffs to solidifying League One championship.
And not just that, we won the title because Bournemouth drew. The weird thing is, we were a penalty away from the playoffs. Yeah. We go down the other end. Painter plays it into Coppinger, the legendary James Coppinger, who's been there for 17 years. He taps the ball in. Not only are we up, but because Bournemouth drew, we are also champions of the division. And bearing in mind, Brian Flynn was our caretaker manager because Dean Saunders does what managers have done in the past at this club, where they see a bigger club like Wolves and they go, right, I'm jumping shit.
We had that with Dougie.
They don't stay with
Dougie Friedman. We had that with
exactly.
And then we got promoted.
So, yeah, and this is not the first time that's happened as well, ever since. You know, Grant McCann was with us. He got us into the playoff semi-final. We were 2 penalties away from the final a few years ago. And he jumped ship to Hull, leaving us with 6 contracted professionals, and that's it. He left us in a right state, took Darren Moore to take us out of that. And then this season, Darren Moore sees the Sheffield Wednesday deal, which is surprising with their ownership. And he's like, right, I'm jumping ship to Sheffield Wednesday. I'll leave them in the dust. And we ended up bottling promotion. We were a point off the title in December this year. And then we end up finishing 14th because Darren Moore jumped ship. And Ben Whiteman leaves. And none of the players give a damn at that point. And it's like, why do managers always seem to leave us when we're in a good position right now? That's why I'm hoping for next season it's not going to be the same story because we've got a player that knows the club through and through and has been part of the glory days. So I don't think it'll be different. I think it'll be different this time. But Dean Saunders was like the first of the few managers that jump shit when they can't be asked to do it anymore. And then Brian Flynn comes from Wrexham, from non-league, to come to Doncaster and steer us into the championship with the title as well. And the weird thing is, emotions-wise, I'm there. So I'm there in the stand going, "Yes, Copper just scored. We've won." I check my phone. I see that Bournemouth have drawn. I check the table. Oh my God, we're champions! We're champions! And my voice went through a collective crack and a permanent stay of rest because my voice was gone. I had to speak in sign language for the next month. It was the emotions, the passion in our fan base is beyond belief. If the Premier League want a brand new club, look at us because we can give you atmosphere. We can give you emotion. I was at the Legends match about a week or two ago when fans were back in the stadium. The atmosphere was like it was full capacity. And we only had selected number of seats because it was social distanced. So, and bearing in mind, we were seeing like fundraisers play. We were seeing Chris Waddle play. We were seeing Clinton Morrison. We were seeing all these players and ex-players and stuff like that. And it felt like a full capacity. It felt like there was no social distancing with the atmosphere. It was we can get that in the Premier League if we were given the chance. Yeah. But the emotions at that point where I was like, yes, Godby just scored. Hang on a sec, we're champions as well. It was, again, it was one of those moments where I was a grown man weeping because I knew that my side had got promoted to the championship once again. Even though it was just for a season, it was a fantastic season.
Sure, absolutely. So you kind of mentioned already how last season went, unfortunately, with the managerial changes and such. So let's end the stream right. Let's end this with you talking about that legend you said, James Coppinger. Tell the viewers about him.
What can I say, man? What can I say about this guy? He was bought. First of all, he went from Newcastle. He made one appearance in the Premier League for Newcastle. Then he went to Exeter City. John Ryan told me months ago, when he brought him from Exeter, it was the best £50,000 he's ever spent. And it proved to be right. Yeah. If you don't know about Coppinger, look it up. And I'm sure you don't need to look too far because we've had so many legends at this football club, right? We've had Peter Kitchen. We've had we go back to Alec Jeffrey. He was a broken leg away from being an international superstar. He was about to make the big move. He was about to play for England around the. It was around the time, I think it was just before the big World Cup win in 1966. So he could have been part of that England squad, but he broke his leg, and unfortunately, that injury set him back. But he was still a Doncaster Rovers legend and could have made it.
Yeah.
But James Coppinger, he's the one legend at this club in the past 150 years that will get a statue. He will get a statue at this club, no doubt whatsoever. He's been awarded with the Medal of Freedom, the local Medal of Freedom. He's been awarded Outstanding Achievement Awards. He's been given achievement honours from the council, from the town of Doncaster. One of the most legendary awards in the Football League is the Sir Tom Finney Award, which is like, obviously Sir Tom Finney, one of the most legendary players in English football. That award is basically given to a player that is one of the most legendary players currently playing in the Football League, and one of the most legendary players in English football.
Yeah.
Coppinger won that award this year. He won the most prestigious award in English football. Take away the Ballon d'Or and stuff like that, because that's worldwide. This is the most prestigious award in English football, even more prestigious than the Premier League awards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He won that award this year. The awards, the stats, over 800 appearances in all competitions, nearly 100 goals. He's a centre attacking midfielder. He's a right winger. He's played at this club for 17 years. He's been away from us 1 year, and that was a loan spell in 2011, 2012 to Nottingham Forest, where he didn't make hardly any appearances. That's it. He's been here for 16, 17 years. He's done everything you can imagine. He scored a hat-trick in the playoff semi-final in 2008 against Southend United. And I think one commentator said it best. If this was the Premier League, we would have been going mad at those goals.
Sure. Yeah.
That was how good the hat-trick was. This season, we were 3-1 down at half-time to Hull City, who would eventually win the league. We get a goal back, 3-2. And then there was 14 minutes added time because of an injury to one of their players. We brought in Coppinger. He's got a free kick about 23 yards out. What does he do? Does he pass it short and let a rocket go off? Does he? How? He steps up, he curls it in, and I lost my collective mind. I lost my cool. I was jumping up and down in my room. I was all over the place emotionally. Yeah. Again, it was one of those moments where I just wept because I was like, I knew he was retiring at that point. So it was like, oh my God, we're not going to get any of those moments again.
Yeah.
And this guy is Mr. Doncaster Rovers. If Mark Noble is Mr. West Ham and Sergio Aguero is Mr. Man City, then James Coppinger is Mr. Doncaster Rovers. And his retirement brought two emotions. It brought sad because I grew up watching James Coppinger. My first year at Doncaster Rovers as a fan was 2004, 2005. So the season where he joined us, I've only known Doncaster Rovers from when James Coppinger joined us right to now. So I've never known I've never been alive to see a Doncaster Rovers without a James Coppinger. Right. So I was sad. But then on the other hand, I'm thinking, well, he's helped bring us to this success. And now the sky's the limit for where we could go in the future because of the foundations that players like. Because James Coppinger, let's face it, he's the last of the Lampard generation, the Terry generation, the Rooney generation. He was the last of that generation. There's a couple of other players playing in Football League at the minute, like Kevin Ellington, who's like 41 at Newport. But James Coppinger is one of the last of the Lampard and Rooney generation, and that kind of generation of player.
Yeah,
and he's not even left the club. He's in a brand new role as part of a brand new behind the scenes staff. So basically, what's happened is we've got a new talent head of talent ID who got called to the Premier League a few years ago. So he's there.
Oh, right.
James Coppinger is I guess you could call it an advisory role or a sports performance role. Yeah. So basically what it is, it's kind of like director of football, but not officially director of football. So it's like what he'll do is He'll be giving advice and mentorship to the young players and helping out on the pitch whenever he can, not playing, but in terms of like coaches and stuff like that. And then what he'll also do is off the field, he'll help the board out with anything they need to do off the field. So he's sort of doing everything and sort of giving advice and mentorship in both areas of the field. So it's kind of like a sports performance mentor of football, not director of football, but like a mentorship of football role. So, he's still with us. He's still part of this club, which is amazing. It just proves, with all the accolades that you see the highlight reels and see exactly what he does. He is the definition of what you want in a football club in terms of the kind of player that cares about the club. And there was a statement that kind of stuck out to me in his last interview after we lost a 4-1 to Peterborough, which wasn't the best game to end on, but we had plenty of problems, in terms of players trying, etc. At that time. Coppin just said in an interview, I don't play for Man United. I don't play for Man City. I play for Doncaster, and that's all I care about. That when someone says he'd rather play for Doncaster over Man United and Man City, what else can you say but thank you for being a part of these 17 years? He's just, I've never known Doncaster without James Coppinger. It's going to be weird next season not knowing that James Coppinger on the field, but I'm sure we're going to get a guy off the field that's just as good on the field.
Absolutely. Aaron, this has been an absolute pleasure. Honestly, just talking to you, I feel like I've kind of like embedded Doncaster within me now. So I'm definitely going to jump on Ashes to Glory. Make sure, guys, that you tune into that as well.
And this season, this past season just gone, man, on the channel, Forever Football DRFC on YouTube, this is our first season and we've hit 600 subscribers. I mean, for a League One club, that is unbelievable. I've worked with so many people this season just gone. Robbie from AFTV has been on the channel. Ian Danter from TalkSport's been on the channel. Yeah. We're hopefully going to get someone from Sky News, sports editor from Sky News Radio on at some point in the future. Nigel Seeley from a company called Premier League Plays, who was talking about the European Super League on the Pat McAfee show in the United States. Hopefully he's coming on the channel soon. I'm going to be filming a show today with Alan from the Football Terrace, the Tottenham fan, to speak about the Tottenham Hotspur at the minute for the new show Rovers and Rivals. And there's so much going on, man. There's a lot of things going on. We're on the road to 100,000 views overall at the minute, which is unbelievable. So next season's going to be mad. We've got the Euros coming up, obviously this next week. We've got the Olympics coverage as well for Team GB for their women's team for Tokyo, so we'll cover that. Yeah. We're going to have loads of pre-season stuff going on, so I'm going to try and hopefully cover what's happening with the team during pre-season and pre-season matches and review them on site, which should be good fun. And then we're going to next season, which will be a good watch. Hopefully, do some away trips and some home trips, and then we sort of go into that. But also, I do have another channel which I've been running for the last 3 years, which is mainly about the theme park industry and covering the news on that. So it's called Coaster Chow. We're on the road to 3,000 subscribers after 2 years of being on YouTube on that one. We're also on the road to 1 million views as well. We're 300,000 away from 1 million views overall, which is great on that one as well. Got some good stuff coming up on there. So, yeah, man, everything's just been going off. Ever since I graduated uni in November, and then obviously before graduation, I think over these last 12 months, my life's just gone boom. My life's just gone upwards and onwards. It's already in a good place, but it's been going onwards and upwards. And personally, it's felt better. I've always been worried about this pandemic, and I think mentally I felt stronger. I'm doing loads of great stuff, filming wise. I got I met the love of my life this year as well, which was a personal blessing for me because I always felt like I was missing someone, and I met that special someone for the first time in my life. So it was always great to get some personal stuff sorted, and I'll never stop loving football because I feel like it's an addiction, and once you're addicted, you can't get away from it.
This is it, and this is why we do what we do. So yeah, you know what? We're gonna have all Aaron's links to the description when this comes out. So make sure you follow Forever Football DRFC. I'm not the best with height, so that theme part 1 I might not promote for you. No, I'm joking.
I'm like 6'3", so I'm fine.
Now I'll stick both channels in the description to this. And yeah, listen, thank you so much for your time, for coming on the channel. Most importantly, keep up the hard work you're doing, because you're putting out a voice for the non-Premier League sides. You know what I mean? So you're doing amazing. And keep that up. Keep that up.
Thank you very much, man. And I'm gonna keep getting Premier League fans involved in the discussion with our club and trying to reach our club to a bigger audience, which is amazing. So,
Absolutely awesome. This is Eagle Eyed Football. Peace.